Who better than me?
Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to another episode, The Hardcore Casual, with your boy, Base the Kid. Please tell a friend to like, subscribe, and share the content. Every view helps. I appreciate all of them. I appreciate all the comments and the feedback I've had so far. I'm still trying to work on a few little bits and pieces, so it's coming. I guess the first thing I want to say is suppose an apologies in order, because I was supposed to drop a video regarding the first ever boxer event on Sky Sports for what they're calling the new generation. But if I'm totally honest, there wasn't much new about it. Same broadcast commentary team, same presenters, same pundits. The one thing I did like was the entrance when it had the I'm not sure who the guy was, but it was whether he was a rapper or a poet of some form, but he was doing the spoken word at the start, and then it sort of transitions into him live in the arena, finishing it off, starting the show. I thought that was really creative. I like that, and I thought, okay, this could be a nice little change of pace. Now I know they don't have many household stars at the minute, but I figured, at least the show itself might give you some good production value. Sky have been doing this for years, so they can't really get that wrong until you started seeing that whole heat map thing. I'm not going to go into it. I'm pretty sure if you're watching this, you subscribe to many other boxing channels who have probably given you their opinion on that. So I don't really need to go into it. Show started off with Richard Riakporhe. Even outside of 2 years in activity, I just don't see any improvements from his previous fights. And he's fully looking to me like someone who literally just loads up on hard punches to avoid himself getting hurt. Remember when you used to be in school and a fight would break out and you used to be in a fight and your whole purpose of that fight is literally you're swinging as hard as you can so you can just get it over and done with, because really and truly you ain't trying to take bangs back. Realistically, that's kind of how I perceive him in the ring, is literally, I'm not trying to take these bangs, so hold this. But the technique ain't really there. There's no progression, and what makes it concerning is it's not even like Rich is a young man. He's 31, 32. He's an older brother. Obviously, he's been calling out Okolie for years. So I love the fact that energy has stayed consistent in the sense of calling him out, or at least attaching his name to him. But when you just look at sort of the levels between the two and his ability and the fact that he's been 2 years out of the ring, I don't know if he's been training or what, but he doesn't look any different under a brand new trainer. Funny enough, a trainer that's actually in the AJ camp as well. I just don't know how much further he goes from his current level, and time's not on his side. But then they had the Jermaine Brown fight. Now I can't remember the name of the guy he was fighting, but I remember I was watching the fight and I thought to myself, okay, this is a nice little scrap. This is kind of what I want to see. It reminded me of the Gulam versus Perione fight from the DAZN cards. I think it was back in August. So that was I thought, okay, yeah, it's warming up. So this could be the moment where the show kicks off. So I gave that one as a thumbs up. That was a quality fight. I enjoyed that. I was hoping to see more of that. But then it went straight to I guess it would be the chief support, which is Ebony Jones making her debut. Now, I know a little bit about Ebony Jones. Like I've done some research. I know sort of the pedigree that she has. But I'm thinking to myself, this unknown female boxer, unknown to the masses, on her professional debut, is being chief support on your inaugural card. I'm just looking at this and the optics is all wrong. I get obviously championing women's boxing is one thing. Obviously, of all the channels I subscribe to, with the exception of Ring IQ, I definitely am sort of a very big proponent of a lot of women's boxing. Like I can name a lot of the women in most of the divisions currently. Like I'd watch as much of it as possible just because I'm interested in the journey it's taking. It takes a whole different path than men's boxing currently. So I do get onto it, but I don't know everything. But the optics of that fight being chief support made no sense to me. I know that technically it may not have been the chief support originally. It might have been the third in the card with the Avanesian fight. Then obviously the Chris Eubank fight that fell through. Whatever. We can get into that another time. But restructure the card. It would have made more sense. As much as I thought the fight was dead, the Riakporhe fight being chief support would have made much more sense. Just because he's got name value from his previous association with Dillian White, people would kind of know him by proxy, and it would have just made more sense to kind of rejig the card and you know essentially just make the flow of the card better. Having said that, though, Ebony Jones, she did well. She did very well fighting someone who was, I think the girl was about 4 or 5 inches taller than her, had the reach, so she was having to sort of crouch low, dip in underneath, and sort of just get her work off in flurries, bounce in and out, and then sort of try and get the tie up when possible. It was a good sort of measured performance, and I can definitely see her getting a lot better as the years go on. Like she's had 3 years out the ring, so the way how she sort of handled that was, it was impressive. And she's got plenty of time because she's only 22, even though she really doesn't look it. But I'm not gonna go into that. Like I've spoken enough about people not looking their age. I'm not. Yeah, that's not one I'm gonna enter on today's show. Um, Avanesian fight, not really much to say. Uh, Dispatched of his opponent in the 2 rounds. Guy was out of his depth, but just me watching that fight, I can tell that European level is Avanesian's level. Like if he tries to go any higher up the rankings, like he will get found out badly because that whole pressure fighter, hands up, just taking shots, walking people down, it only works for so long. It's not even whether a person's got power, because if they've got power, then you're just taking unnecessary damage for the sake of it, because they are going to land shots on you even if you can take them. But if they don't have power, they're just going to maneuver you around the ring, because his footwork's quite crude. He doesn't necessarily cut the ring off. He just literally walks forward, and his opponents thus far just panic, so walk they just walk back in straight lines, as opposed to trying to create angles to maneuver out. So you put him against like a Virgil Ortiz Jr. or a Jaron Ennis or a Terence Crawford, he gets stopped. Not just stopped, I think actual knockout on the floor. Can't beat the 10 count or the ref waves it off. Someone like Sean Porter, someone like Rashidi Ellis, I think even those guys, they give him the business, and that's probably corner throw in the towel. Can't really speak much about Spence right now, just because I don't know what's happening with him in terms of his eye injury, how effective he's going to be when he's back, if he's even able to come back, because medically, they might do a madness. But overall, it wasn't a great card. But it was the first one, so I've got to give him a chance to to sort of get better. So I'm going to reserve judgment until, say, the end of November. I think that's a sort of a good time. They've been in the game for so long. Certain little things and errors they were making, they shouldn't really be making, because they've been producing boxing for years on end. So I'm going to give them 3 months to kind of get to a place where I can then judge their product moving forward. I didn't watch the DAZN Milan card. I heard it was a fun little card, so I have been meaning to do that. I've just been really busy this week so far. Literally, I've just finished watching. I watched 2 things just before I started recording this. Actually, the first one was I was watching the press conference for Fury Wilder. It finished not long ago, so I'm gonna get into that in a moment. But I just want to, before I do that, give a quick shout out to Ade Oladipo for his latest video, The Journey, which just basically has encapsulated his life to this point and the things that he's done to get to where he's at, the things he's had to sacrifice, the things he wasn't able to do and achieve. If you're not subscribed to Ade's channel, subscribe to it. Anyone who's on mine probably has already subscribed to his, because I know he's one of the reasons why I did this in the first place. But it's an amazing watch. Like, I was watching it on my phone, gripped in silence, and me and him are gonna have a conversation when this week's over, and a few other bits and pieces. But yeah, shout out to Ade, and I'm looking forward to the new content from the new studio. I'm looking forward to being in the studio at some point as well. Hint, hint. All right, yeah. So let's go to this press conference now. Now, I was actually lucky. I didn't have to sit through watching the copious amounts of breaks in between segments, because I fell asleep, and then when I woke up, it was kind of on, and it was towards the end of the press conference, so I was able to rewind back and sort of watch the segments itself. So first thing I noticed, it took Tyson Fury a very long time after he was announced to get from wherever he was to the actual stage. That was telling, because in both of his previous ones and all of his other press conferences, minus the Batman one, which obviously he's sort of crashed, he gate crashed. I think he gate crashed someone else's entrance in that. I'd have to watch it again, but that's how I remember it being. But all of them, he's always there, primed, comfortable, like on point. This one, however, it was like it took at least a minute before his name was called, before he even like appeared to be walking towards the ring. Now, all of these little things, for someone who's has a very kind of consistent pattern of certain behaviors, as much of a maverick and a wild card as they are, like, there's still certain cues and keys that he has. But that was odd. The refusing to sit down thing. Now, he's done that before where he'll stand up, but he normally will sit down first, then he'll get up and walk around and impose his presence. But refusing to sit down. Even the way he was then talking to Kate Abdo, a lot of it seemed like very nervous. I don't propose to be like the greatest Tyson Fury fan, supporter, knowledgeist. Like, I'm not super knowledgeable on him as a person, because I really don't care for him. But just watching what I watched, the whole thing looked uncomfortable. The energy was off. The words weren't flowing. It seemed like at points it felt like he had dry mouth, like certain things just weren't coming out. He seemed lost for what to say, like what was next. It just wasn't the usual Fury show. And as much as I'm tired of the Fury show, there's at least always a familiarity in it. There was no familiarity in this. It all seemed different. Almost like he is fully feeling the pressure. Now, my good friend Travis J, I know a lot of people must think that we've got some big rivalry or something. Like, no, Travis is my guy, is my boy. Like I never met Travis through boxing. I never met him through comedy. Like so like I know Travis on a level outside of this. So when you see things like Monday Night Smoke or whatever, that's all fun. We're both broccoli boys. It's just how we show love. It's all competitive. It's friendly. It's nothing other than that. But one of his takes that I do agree with. If you've watched a couple of the shows recently, you'll know why I say what I do agree with. But he says that he doesn't believe Fury can fight as the favorite. He has to be the underdog, and I give credence to that purely because when he wasn't able to get in the head of someone like Ustinov, for instance, 2 days before the fight, pulled out. Now there was a family issue, yes, but that family issue weren't gonna stop you from taking the fight initially. It was only once you realized Ustinov couldn't really understand the stuff you were saying in the press conference because he was a replacement from the previous opponent. Tyson was like, nah, not feeling this one, moving out. Similar to obviously after the first fight with Wilder, where he should have won but got the draw. It took him a while before he decided to take the rematch. Okay, there's other instances. Obviously, we have the Klitschko issue, being on top, being the champion, all of a sudden having, what was it, 30, 40 pounds that you were supposed to lose a month before the fight, then pulling out of the fight for whatever reason. Once you were the champion and expected to, because you weren't the underdog anymore, all of a sudden the pressure was different. The whole thing hit a bit different to you. So I kind of see it. There's many other instances where you can kind of look at, oh, okay, so being the favorite here, you don't give your best performances. All right, cool. But then on the other hand, listening to Deontay Wilder, the delusions are still there. So I really don't know what to think. I mean, look, we know Wilder maybe, I don't know how smart he is generally, but he's not as articulate as I think he believes he is. But he said men lie, women lie, but the eyes don't lie. Like the eyes see what they see. But then was talking about things like photos and videotapes, and when it's clear that a photo, a video, an image of any, to even your eyes, like your eyes can play tricks on you because your brain computes and analyzes things. Everyone's brain analyzes things differently. Like there's times when you might be watching, like I'm literally looking at the camera right now. In the corner of my eye, I might see something and it looks like something's moving beside me. I go to look at it, but nothing's moving, but I thought I saw it. So even your eyes play tricks on you. So the kind of statements he's coming out with, I don't know if they're just due to a lack of intelligence or just due to a lack of understanding of basics, sort of basic physiological makeup, basic minds, basic human intuition. Like your eyes will see what you want them to see if you want it to see. Like it's everything. Sometimes you will hear things because you want to hear things. Everything is a process. It's all about how you react and how you break certain situations down. So I was listening to some of that, but he seemed calm. Not that he doesn't normally, but he seemed like just a lot calmer. Almost like, oh, I'm gonna try and not give anything up here, and it seemed to be working. And I also saw he was, I don't know if it was his phone, but he was on something. He kept sort of referring to it, and maybe I'm giving him and Malik Scott too much credit here, but it seemed very reminiscent of what Lomachenko and Usyk do in press conferences when, like, for instance, they will be given equations or something that they have to figure out, and they have to solve these equations while they're in the press conference, while giving their answers in the interviews, or having to write poetry or do things that keep their mind engaged and active on something else. Now, if that's what they're doing, that could be very interesting, because a focused mind doesn't tire as easily as an unfocused mind. And the sharper you are, the quicker your instincts are going to be, and the quicker your reactions. So that was all kind of, it was interesting. I was looking at all these things thinking, okay, this might be, this could add an interesting dynamic. Towards the end, Fury finally kind of got into his rhythm once him and Wilder started engaging with each other. But Wilder he still wasn't biting the way how Fury, I think, wanted him to bite. They was all kind of talking over each other, but Wilder's tone kept very consistent and sort of less aggressive and less emotional than normal. While Fury just kind of was getting more and more irate and shouty and trying to just talk over, and Wilder just kind of stayed within the same zone. So it almost feels like the energy, while it was off from both of them to a degree, it seems like one of them has managed to channel and gain the energy in this exchange. And on this occasion, that one does seem to be Wilder's side. It seems to be Wilder. He seems to be more in control than he usually is. And Fury seems to be losing a bit of the control that he's used to. So I had no interest in this fight previously. And to be honest, as an actual fight itself, I still don't. Because I did say a while ago, I'm not watching the fight regardless. But since obviously the AJ stuff has happened, and several people have come up to me and sort of sent me messages like, yo, nah, now it's actually important, because the dynamics of the heavyweight division now changes. Before it was a case of, oh, they're just gonna try and find a way to duck the undisputed with Joshua, but now Joshua doesn't have that belt, so all of a sudden they're gonna have the rematch, so that's now off the table for next, guaranteed. And then it's just come out now that Dillian Whyte is going to be the next mandatory, and they have to fight him next, provided he beats Otto Wallin at the end of the month. So with that, all adds a very interesting dynamic. And because I was really invested in the undercard as well, like Belanga's on the undercard, Sanchez against a Jagbar, Hellenius, Kovnarski 2, Jaron Jared Anderson is on the undercard as well. So all of that, I'm like, okay, I wanted to see the undercard before. I just didn't want to have to pay for them too. But now I've decided I'm gonna watch the whole show, even if I maybe watch the undercard and then save that fight for the morning, because I still don't necessarily care about the fight itself, but it is a lot more interesting now. So I will be paying my box office, and I will be sort of doing my reviews and analysis. And I think I'll probably Give me Friday, maybe Friday after weigh-ins. I might do a prediction video, and we'll see how much investment I can put into making an accurate prediction to this. But yeah, generally speaking, it just doesn't feel like Fury has got the same momentum that he had from the previous two. But write him off at your peril. Wilder seems like he's a lot more confident and calm and assured in this one, so something's different. But then he still is talking about the whole you don't need skills when you've got power, which is the reason he lost in the first and the second fight, to be fair. So we're gonna have to see. Give it a couple more days. Like I said, after the weigh-ins, I'll be able to make an accurate assessment as to how I think this is gonna play out. But I'm gonna leave it there for now because I've got to get up in a few hours to go to gym before I get ready for work. So, as I said before, please like and subscribe. And for the time being, Hardcore Casual